Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's time again for this week's Unfiltered News by G.Edward Griffin from the Reality Zone, where political correctness is not spoken here. Compiled by G.Edward Griffin and his News Scouts for the week of January 5th through the 11th, 2013. And this week we have a special comic strip that you should see. It says, guess which is a greater threat to your safety? Gun laws supported by the NRA members. Or, take away all weapons except from those in authority over us. There's a person that wants to be a slave right there. He says, make me a slave, government. I want to be taken to the FEMA camp and done with. Because that's what happens if they ever take your guns away. That's the only thing that keeps us from them. I mean, it's just unreal how they're trying to do all this stuff. Here's something here. Star, or an article of interest, starting this week's headlines that you may have missed. German study shows that vaccinated children are 5 times more prone to preventable diseases than unvaccinated children. That's because their immune systems are allowed to develop naturally without interference from artificial vaccines. And I haven't been sick in years since I stopped taking vaccines, so there must be something to that. Natural News, January 11th. Wyoming Representative Kendall Croker is introducing Firearms Protection Act that will nullify any federal laws that impose a ban on semi-automatic firearms in magazine size. The bill includes criminal charges for federal agents who would violate the law. 10th Amendment Center, January 10th. We should have whatever the government has just about to protect ourselves from the government. That's what that's all about. That's what the Second Amendment was always about. Not to go hunting, not to have fire shooting practice and shooting a weapon or anything. It was to protect us from them. And that's the way they wrote it. They were saying if you ever get your guns taken away, ever, the government will take advantage and come after you to enslave you, basically. There's a lot of people out there that don't know this because the government schools won't teach this lesson. It's just not teachable to them. So these people don't know that. I've known people that didn't know how the moon goes around the earth because they never taught it to them in school. True. A lot of people don't know the moon can be seen in the daytime. There was a textbook several years ago, an 8th grade textbook, that actually said you couldn't see the moon in the daytime. Really? Apparently, they never went out who wrote the book to see. Alright, next, Obama nominates former Citigroup executive Jacob Lew to replace Tim Geithner as Treasury Secretary. Lew personally benefited from this CETA's $45 billion TARP handout and received $944,578 bonus in 2008. The same year, CETA posed a $27 billion loss. That was on top of his generous salary. Only executives with political connections and access to the public treasury can run businesses into bankruptcy and receive huge financial rewards. Daily Bell, January 10th. Criminals, I'm telling you. It's us and thems. Again. And it's the few against the many who have the power and the money to control your thinking through the mainstream media. And I can tell you who those people are. I will show you who those people are. Right here. Look at this. It says right here, Spectre. Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion, is a fictional global terrorist organization of James Bond's series of Ian Fleming's novels. Or is it? You make that decision. Next. Video. They lied and lied and lied. Journalist Matt Taibbi reveals secrets of the bailouts. Government officials lied at every turn to protect their banking friends. No, they did not pay back the bailouts. That too is a lie. Here is a summary of the solid details. MSNBC, January 10th. Again, you're being controlled by Spectre. India's law requiring GMO foods to be labeled as such went into effect on January 1st. Natural Society, January 10th. Good job for them. At least they know what has poison in it and what doesn't. And it isn't on a tag. It's on the very label on there. So the stores can't cut the tags off to save themselves from losing profits from GMO foods. Next. Video. CNN host Piers Morgan debates Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America, who explains the Second Amendment was designed by the founders so that citizens could protect themselves against a tyrannical government. Them. That is the tyrannical government. If you are familiar with the gun control debate, there will be little new here, but this is a good refresher course, and to spread around to others who don't. InfoWars, January 10th. Next. U.S. Vice President Biden, or Bite Me, says that Obama is considering using executive orders to implement gun control without Congress. This may include banning so-called assault weapons, creating a national gun registry, limiting high-capacity ammunition, and making gun trafficking and selling of guns a felony. This is especially ironic because Fast and Furious was a government program designed to put assault weapons in the hands of Mexican drug dealers. Newsmax, January 9th. And it also has come out in certain articles that you can do a research on Google that was saying that the Benghazi incident was a Fast and Furious in the Middle East to the Taliban, or to the actual mercenaries. And the people found out about it and attacked the embassy. And that was the real reason behind that. The U.S. soon could be energy independent because oil production is expected to soar 25% by 2014. That's the good news. The bad news is that the method of extraction is fracking, which consumes massive amounts of water and is linked to groundwater pollution and earthquakes. Cattle Network, January 8th. See the movie, where was that? It was on last night on Dish. I think it was Showtime showed it. It was called Gasland. And you should see that movie just to get an idea of what fracking can do. I mean, it bubbles up from what they have done deep down in the ground, and it gets into the water, and suddenly you have methane in your water and other chemicals. Not good to drink. Video. Madrid, Spain, government healthcare workers are violently protesting against privatization of hospitals and clinics. They do not want to lose security of the government paycheck, but there appears to be no option because the present system is bankrupt. YouTube, January 8th. They come forward because they're not getting paid anymore. It's coming here. Wait and let's go hide and see, as they say. Texas, a judge has ruled that the San Antonio student must wear an ID badge at school. She refused to wear any badge embedded with a radio frequency ID chip because she considers it to be the mark of the beast. The court agreed to allow her to wear a badge without the chip. Wired, January 8th. And you should have that choice. If you don't want to wear a chip that's tracking you everywhere you're going with a little dot, but you have an ID on you, it says, here I am, this is me, and maybe even have they didn't say anything about a barcode. I mean, you could have a barcode reader and go up and go, and read it. And it's going to be like most of these students, if they're not on SSRIs, they shouldn't have to have the chip. It's the ones on SSRIs you got to worry about getting a gun and coming into school and shooting everyone. Just do some research on that with all the shooters in high schools and middle schools and now going into elementary schools just to take your guns away. U.S. judge rules that Bradley Manning, accused of sending classified documents to WikiLeaks, was illegally punished by keeping him for 9 months in a windowless cell often without clothing. Because of this, the judge will allow 112 days to be shaved off of Manning's sentence if he is convicted, which is expected. His sentence could be 80 years or even life in prison, so 112 days is not considered to be meaningful. Yahoo, January 8th. It's the ideal, though, of what he showed was the atrocities of what happened. It's not what he did was against any law in the military. He was a whistleblower. And this is what they do to whistleblowers, as you can see. Someone who comes forward and said the government did wrong. And we want to show that it did wrong. Because if it's doing this, what else is it doing? U.S. banks pay out fresh billions for mortgage abuse. Pocket change. Yahoo, January 7th. Georgia woman stopped a home invasion by shooting the intruder with a .38 revolver 5 times. When the man, who had an extensive criminal record, broke into her home with a crowbar, the woman retreated with her twin 9-year-old children to a crawl space. When the intruder opened the door to where she was, because he was searching for him apparently, she opened fire. One can only wonder what would have happened if she had not been armed. Dreaming Demon, January 7th. Next, 5 ways to avoid detox BT genetically engineered organisms from your system. Natural Society, again, has a cure, or at least a treatment. Who knows if there's a cure for BT genetically engineered organisms. January 7th. Alrighty, next. Whole towns are being evicted at gunpoint by the Brazilian communist government because they don't got guns. Police and military personnel, some wearing UN insignias, are transferring tracts of land from residents who have lived in the area for decades to a group of Indians whose ancestors lived there at some point. Communists and other UN collectivists seek to eliminate all private property. The Indians will not own the land, but will be allowed to live there as a tribe as long as they do what the government tells them to. New American, January 7th. That's why you have guns, to keep them from doing that. Illegal things. If all the people there were armed, it wouldn't have happened, because they had known, as the Japanese knew, why they did not invade America during World War II. Is that the emperor and the commander in Japan said, we know that Americans have guns, and there's a gun behind every blade of grass. Every blade of grass has a gun, and they did not invade us. Hitler did not invade Switzerland for that same reason. Wake up, people. Guns are good in the hands of the responsible citizen. Australia's carbon tax is hitting small businesses hard. Many are being forced to close their doors. Globalist report, January 7th. And they're just still pushing that carbon tax there in Australia. Even though they may be having a heat wave now over there, it's freezing everywhere else. And then they're trying to talk about the dynamics that, oh, it's hot down in the south and the Arctic is melting and the north is cooling because it's flowing that way. Really, that's not how thermodynamics works. Apparently, they don't know their science. Obama has nominated John Brennan to head the CIA. He worked for the CIA under Bush and supports torture, drone executions, and spying on American citizens. InfoWars, January 7th. So we're putting another criminal in the CIA. Video. Syria's President Assad is offering to hold a referendum to approve his proposals to put an end to the violence in his country. He says that his proposals will be successful, but only if the Western countries stop funding terrorist groups that are trying to overthrow his regime. Russian television, January 6. And it's true. I mean, mercenaries are over there, being funded by the U.S. and Israel. Do your research, you'll find out. Video. U.S. The EPA has approved an E15 ethyl blend of fuel, which is derived from corn. But be advised that this fuel can cause severe damage in cars older than 2012. So if you don't got a brand new car, it's going to eat your engine up. Sorry, all the seals and everything are going to go bye-bye, and your engine's going to go kaput. Auto manufacturers now are refusing to cover repairs under warranty if the fuel is used. And they have stickers probably on the gas tank. Do not use E15. Avoid the manufacturer's repairs and warranty. YouTube, December 6th. Another video. U.S., German and Dutch troops arrived in Turkey to place Patriot missiles on the border of Syria. To justify this action, NATO forces claims they are there to protect Turkey against Syrian missiles with chemical warheads. The evidence, however, suggests that the real purpose is to bring psychological pressure against Syria to accept U.S.-sponsored regime change and reaccept the petrodollar of the U.S. YouTube, January 5th. I added that in because that's per the research today. Another article of interest. Russia Today is an alternative media source in America that is owned by the Russian government. Its mission is to create a favorable image for Russia and her allies while showing the U.S. and her allies in an unfavorable light. Readers should be aware of this bias. Unfortunately, not all stories unfavorable to the U.S. are false or exaggerated, and in many cases these stories are not carried in American mainstream media. For the same reason, stories unfavorable to the Russian government are withheld from the Russian people. From time to time, the Unfiltered News from G.Edward Griffin carries stories from RT, but only when we are convinced they are accurate and when they are ignored by the mainstream media, the corporate media of America. Global Post, January 5th. Remember that. If you see an RT article on this newsletter, it's because it's been verified. Next, new study shows that dumping dispersants in the Gulf of Mexico after BP oil spill increased toxicity 52 times over what it would have been with just the oil. Dispersants also slow the growth of oil-eating microbes and thereby cause the oil to last longer. The purpose of using dispersants was to reduce fines by hiding the amount of oil spilled. These dispersants were authorized by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. That's why all the shrimp have no eyes and you're eating that stuff. If you eat shrimp from the Gulf and other fish. Washington's blog posted January 5th. And it's still, be wary of the Gulf seafood. Video. This video shows the hypocrisy of California Senator Dianne Feinstein's wish to confiscate all guns from America. Watch her boast of carrying a concealed weapon for her own protection when she feared for her life. She does not want average citizens to have that option. Oh no, the slave cannot be armed. Don't you know? You're not a slave if you're armed. You're an equal. YouTube, January 5th. And it just comes down to that. You're not an equal to them. You're a subordinate. You're under them. You're beneath them. Next, documents reveal that the Merck Pharmaceutical paid a subsidiary of WebMD Health, a popular website, over $3.5 million to promote vaccines to the masses. thru, January 5th. And they did. They promoted the vaccines during the swine flu, flying pig flu, which are now doing the same thing again. I just watched it all day today on Fox News and other news things saying, you gotta get your shot. It's an epidemic. It's deadly. It's going to kill everyone in the universe. It's going to take God out of the universe. You gotta get your shot. I'm exaggerating, but that's about what the panic is of them wanting you to get the flu shot. Little knowing that very flu shot weakens your immune system. And several people have been taking these over the years, and of course they're going to get the flu. And because their immune system has been compromised. Man, when will people wake up that the news media is basically a salesman? And they sell you stuff. And they sell you stuff like an infomercial. And that looked like an infomercial. It was like watching an infomercial. The pictures they were showing and everything, it was like trying to push a product on TV. It was amazing. Next, Fukushima cleanup crews have been told to ignore safety rules to get the job done. They are dumping radioactive waste into rivers and allowing contaminated water to drain into them as well. New York Times, January 5th. I wonder the people there in Japan think they're lab rats. 'Cause that's what they apparently are. Analysis. This is the analysis reports. This one done by the judge. Napolitano explains that a $1 trillion platinum coin to pay down the debt would cause inflation to injecting that amount in a new money into the economy, and that this proposal is a diversion from the real problem of overspending. That's right, we're overspending ourselves. And I have to tell you people, you do not owe that money. Did you vote to have that money spent? No. That should have been a vote of the people, not the vote of them. There's some points where a democracy works, where 51% or more makes the decision, not the republic. And that's the only time I agree is on stuff like this. There are people who are smart enough to realize it, who do the research, can make the right decision. Mike Rivero talked about that today on his show, and you should see that. He talked about that, where he talked about how we should have voting of the people on the major issues, because a lot of people are awake today. They're not asleep like they were 10 years ago. A lot of the people have done their research and are awake, and that's why they had to cheat on the voting and everything of the presidencies and stuff like that, called voting fraud, because they knew the people were awake and were voted for the right person. They were voted Ron Paul in there. That's where they were voted in, because most of them were not brainwashed by the mass media service, which is corporate media, who wants only the people in there that will do as the corporates will tell you, the umbrella corporation. That's what we're under. Probably 10 corporations running the world, and it looks like an umbrella top. Think about it. It's true. We agree. Minting a coin that is intrinsically worth a few $1,000s in platinum and declaring by law that it must be accepted in return for $1 trillion Federal Reserve notes is not much different than merely printing $1 trillion worth of $100 bills and putting them into circulation. The only difference is that the coin would have a token of intrinsic value, whereas the paper money would have none. Inflationary effects essentially would be the same. Fox Insider, January 9th. This is the same type of thing. There's other articles out on this where it was saying that, you know, they can make a coin to pay off the debt. That's only if everyone understands that that coin is paying the actual debt, not the inflated debt that the banksters and corporate banksters have put together in the trillions of dollars that doesn't exist. That's money printed out of nothing. It's paper. It could be used for wallpaper, as far as the only reason it's worth anything because people will accept it as payment. And if it wasn't accepted as payment, it would have to be readjusted to be worth something. Like a silver coin was, because of its weight in silver, it could not be changed. You could not change silver's price by just saying it's worth now this much or worth now this much, because it was intrinsically, and it was am I on the edge of it, was valued at a certain amount, and that was a standard amount no matter what worldwide, and they have weights and balances, and that's what it's about. Next, anyways, do your research on that. You'll find out that if they could set the paper at a certain price and not have it inflated or interest on it, it would be worth the same across the board. Now, acceptance of it would be a different thing, but that would be between companies, businesses, people. There's a difference there. The dollar is the Federal Reserve, banksters, who use it as usury and charge interest on it. And that's what's wrong. We got to get rid of the usury off our money and make it a single value, no interest. Take it away from the banksters, which are private banks, and put it back in the hands of the state. And let the state, where Congress in the Constitution controls that. And it's not controlled by, because the Congress wouldn't do this if the banks were giving them money. They wouldn't do this. They would keep it so it would be at a certain point, because if they changed it to make it better for them, it would make it better for everyone. But if you have an outside force doing the same thing, it will make it better only for the banksters, and the banksters just give more paper to Congress and the Senate, or the federal government. Anyways, video. California finance expert explains that state bonds typically cost taxpayers 2 times their face value because of acquired interest. Bonds now used to fund public employee pensions, roads, dams, bridges, waterworks, and many other projects that should be paid from the general fund without interest. Again, without interest. This is similar to the federal government continually increasing the national debt to pay for its normal operating expenses. In both cases, the process is unsustainable. It gets to a point where the money's worthless. $100,000 Zimbabwe bill is what we're heading to. Produced in 2007, but even more relevant today. Full disclosure, January 7th. Yeah, Zimbabwe has a bill. It's worth $100,000. You have to have a bucket of them or a barrel of them to buy a loaf of bread. That is what usury does. That's what interest does to money. No interest backed money is a strong backed money. Bill Gross, founder of the world's largest bond, has published an article entitled "Money for Nothing, Writing Checks for Free." He calls attention to the near $10 trillion explosion in global central bank money in assurance since 2006 and the impending doom historically associated with a money-for-nothing monetary policy. His conclusions, the whole charade will hit a brick wall. Bull market thinking, January 5th, and that's what's happening. Don't you see it? Don't you know? Are you people just blind? Or I know most of the people that read my newsletter are informed. They gotta be. They know what's going on, and if they are informed, they're passing this on to others to get them informed, because you got to be informed about what the money system's doing. That's why they're trying to take the guns. I'm telling you again, this is why they want your guns. Ben Swan in a video shows evidence in 3 recent shootings that contradicts the official stories. Surveillance videos of the crime scenes could resolve these issues. Why don't the police release the videos? YouTube, January 5th. Why on 9/11 did they release all the videos of the Pentagon being hit? All of them? There was a dozen or so? Questions, because that was a cruise missile anyways, and it was smaller than the jet that is projected that would have caused damage, so it had to be a cruise missile. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. It's just now they're trying to use these shootings to take away your Second Amendment right to protect yourself from the government, who will do as they will to you once they get the guns. Just do research of every country in the world in the past history. From South America to Russia to China to Indonesia. Just read it. Just do your research. You'll find out that the only time that these people were oppressed and hundreds of millions were killed was because they had their guns taken away. And that's why the Second Amendment is so important. It has nothing to do with hunting or anything, as I said earlier. It has everything to do with protecting ourselves, the people, we the people, from them, the government, who are our servants, who suddenly will change that position once they get your guns away. The rights weren't made for nothing. The rights were made to protect the masses from the few. Last but not least, video. This is the most concise analysis of both sides of the gun control debate we have seen. Most of the points in part 2 are seldom mentioned in the current public debate. Highly recommended in part 2. And this was done back on the 23rd. Still, we're trying to get this message across of why we are pro-gun and against guns. The two are seldom mentioned. The reason is government will take advantage if you are unarmed and they are armed. I say if you want to do that, we got to take the guns away from them too. Unarm both sides. That's the only way to ensure it. And then see what happens. I know what happens. That one movie, not Drudge, or was it? It was the other one where he went to the future and everybody's listening to Looney Tune sounds and everything. Yeah. Anyways, great photos. This is a very good photo. I like that. It kind of looked like a screen or a tunnel in the time. And it's just a wall with an arch over a bridge. Anywho, down to the humor for this week. You got this week's humor. There you go. This actually happened with some guys from Maine. They dressed the truck up with one guy spread eagle on the roof. The driver and passengers put on moose heads. They went down the main tow road interstate, causing 16 accidents. The moose hunted the hunter. Yes, they went to jail. Yes, alcohol was involved. This proves that men cannot be left alone, if you want to look at it that way. Interesting. A real incident. Anyways, the Unfiltered Forum. This is the groundhogs and presidents and the light bulb light up. Yeah, they're trying to give you all those mercury bulbs. CO2, a greenhouse pollutant, is not dangerous. It's not the gas. If anything, it's water vapor. How are we going to get rid of that? The plant's 70-some% water. Water vapor is more of a heat holder than CO2. The sun does it, stupid, as they say. It's the sun. NASA just came out with an article on that. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but there was an article out by NASA saying that the sun controls the weather climate more than anything else, and people have none or little to do with it. It's a NASA article. They have NASA. Never a straight answer, but this time they got it right. They're actually, you hear that, they're, because everyone says that, they're trying to do reverse psychology on you. Anywho, that's it for this week from the Unfiltered News by G.Edward Griffith from the Reality Zone, where political correctness is not spoken here. Until next time, have a great evening if you're in the Midwest, Ohio Valley area, and anywhere else. Have a good evening. Have a good morning if you're already on the other side of the world. Have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, this is Spellbinder saying be good or be good at it, and good day.